Welcome to National Pension Partners, where retirement planning meets peace of mind. Today, we're diving into the 412(e)(3 plan, also known as a fully insured pension plan. This isn't just any retirement plan. It's the gold standard for stability and guaranteed benefits. How does it work? Simple. It's funded exclusively by life insurance and annuity contracts. This means no market risks, no actuarial assumptions, just ironclad guarantees. Think of it like this. You're a small business owner who hates surprises. The 412(e)(3 plan gives you predictable, stable contributions every year. Your future benefits are backed by insurance contracts, so you know exactly what you're getting. No guesswork, no headaches. But there's more. These plans are designed to maximize your contributions and offer significant tax advantages. And with National Pension Partners, you're not just getting a plan, you're getting a team of experts, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, all dedicated to making your retirement as secure as possible. We provide personalized consulting, ensuring that your plan is tailored to your specific needs. Best part, initial consultations and proposals are absolutely free. $0, zero commitment. So if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. With the 412(e)(3 plan, your future is in safe hands. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. Perfect for small business owners who like their finances as predictable as Monday mornings. Stable contributions, ironclad guarantees, and serious tax advantages. It's the trifecta of financial security. And with National Pension Partners, you get a team of brainiacs, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, ensuring your retirement is as secure as Fort Knox. Oh, did we mention the free consultations? That's right. You get a personalized expert proposal with $0 down. So, if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. Because when it comes to your future, boring is the new exciting. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling. For more details, check out National Pension Partners at nationalpensions.com. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling.
Hope everybody is having a great weekend. I know that I had a real good one. Definitely a lot of activities going on at my Cultural Arts Center and all along those lines, or the Cultural Arts Center that I work at. So we actually had kids learning about robots on Saturday and about technology. I think they were even designing their own roller coasters and things along those lines. So that was definitely fun to see. And then, of course, as I was telling Rick earlier, there was a Indian group there yesterday. So they had some Indian music, as in from traditional Asian Indian. And then, of course, there's always that good Indian food as well. So that was going on. And then, of course, I think it's celebrated in various parts of the country. But here in North Carolina, we have an event that celebrates the African-American culture called Black August in the Park. So that was going on. So I went by that and even went to by and saw at Israelis Mayor Leonardo Williams, who had spoken at the DNC. So we got a chance to speak to him briefly. He said that his segment, which was about 3 minutes, was supposed to be about 10 minutes. And of course, he did get bumped on the first day, but he was there on the closing day and definitely sounded like he had a good time. And he said that it was, of course, very intense because they shuffle you in and out. But apparently they had heard him speak and thought that he needed to be heard as a representative of what can go on positively in the enterprise world in cities and all along those lines. So it was a pleasure to talk to him. And then I had a chance to go by a art gallery that was celebrating its 1 year anniversary, the LOS Gallery here in Durham as well. So like I said, a lot going on the personal front, but let me get to some news on the world stage, and then I'll bring in Rick Rosner and we'll see who else shows up as well. some people are trying to figure out who Telegram CEO Pavel Durov is, but he's saying that he has nothing to hide after his Paris arrest. That is what the company says. And a lot of people will know that Telegram is a social media site and all along those lines. So definitely a lot of folks are saying that this is a free speech flashpoint after their founder's arrest. And in Ukraine, the Ukraine's president says a Russia overnight attack involved over 100 missiles and definitely lots of drones as well. So Russia launched one of the largest aerial attacks on cities and power grids across Ukraine, that according to Zelensky. So that's something else we're seeing in the news. And more than 60 are dead after a militant attack in Pakistan's Balochistan. So definitely that's something else going on, another flashpoint around the world. And Israel has ordered evacuations in Deir al-Balah, and patients are fleeing the Al-Aqsa hospital. So definitely that's something we're seeing, and families are fleeing after the new Israeli evacuation in Gaza as ceasefire hopes are dimming in that area. So Gaza's 2.2 million people are confined to a humanitarian area smaller than Manhattan. So definitely there's a lot of folks concerned about that. And China's military is to conduct armed patrols and live fire exercises near Myanmar. So definitely there may be another flashpoint in the world as well as China is stepping up armed patrols on the border as the Myanmar conflict deepens. So that's something else we're seeing as well. And the former national security advisor, McMaster, says he won't work for Trump again. So H.R. McMaster struggled to understand Putin's hold on Trump, and definitely he had a blistering account of the Trump White House. So the former national security advisor says Trump can be manipulated with flattery. So that is something that particular individual that worked in the Trump administration said. And the captain of the Sicily yacht is under investigation for negligent shipwreck and homicide. That's according to reports coming out of that area. So the captain of Mike Lynch's yacht is under investigation for manslaughter. So that's something that folks are paying to as well. As investigators are saying, 5 bodies were found in the same cabin of Mike Lynch's super yacht as prosecutors began looking into a crime hypothesis. So definitely that's something folks are paying to also. An ice cave collapsed kills tourists as rescuers search for 2 missing in Iceland. So it looks like tourist is dead and 2 are trapped after an ice wall collapsed in Iceland. So that's something else that is in the news. And some folks are saying that the Philippines is the next Ukraine. China apparently is escalating in South China Sea. So definitely I know that we've got some serious interest in the Philippines, so that could be quite interesting as well. And apparently Australian employees now have the right to disconnect from work after hours. So Australians got the right to disconnect after working hours. So Australian employees now have the right to ignore work emails and calls after hours. So it looks like that is a new law that they can actually just disregard their boss's pleas after hours. And apparently they passed it into law. So I'm going to see if Nick would like something like that and all along those lines. So definitely lots happening in the world. In Bangladesh, millions in Bangladesh are stranded by flooding, and some are blaming their neighbors. So definitely that's something else going on. And Maduro has not shown necessary public evidence to declare a victory in Venezuela. So Venezuelan electoral officials are condemning the grave lack of transparency in Nicolas Maduro's re-election. So the U.S. and 10 Latin American states have rejected his vote certification. So that's something else that we're seeing. And German prosecutors name a Syrian man suspected of the Solingen stabbings. So definitely Germany, Scholz promises more deportations after visiting the mass stabbing scene. So definitely it looks like German leaders are vowing tougher knife laws and more deportations after that fatal attack in Solingen. So definitely a lot's going on in the world, and we'll get into the conversation about that. Let me just see what's going on in the U.S., and then I'll bring in my fellow panelists, and we'll see what they've got on their mind and what's happening in their world as well. But let's just really quickly see what's happening in the U.S. There's a lot of things that are gearing up toward that presidential race and all along those lines. So Trump and Harris are clashing over the debate rules, and apparently there are some folks that are even suggesting that he might skip, meaning Trump, the debate with Harris. So definitely they are sparring over the microphone rules and all along those lines. So it looks like there's some argument about the hot mics and whether they want them or don't want them. And I'm sure there's some other things that'll be part of this debate as well. So it'll be interesting to see if we actually get this debate, because that's only supposed to be in about 2 weeks and everything. So we're going to see if this actually transpires or it doesn't transpire. But they're already haggling and all along those lines. A Nevada man is facing trial for allegedly damaging an ancient rock formation over there in Nevada at Lake Mead, and looks like he could face up to 10 years in the prison for damaging that rock formation that apparently has some history to it as well. And a body of a Grand Canyon hiker is found after flash flood. So the body of the missing Arizona hiker was found days after flash flood at Grand Canyon National Park, and Governor Hobbs has activated the Arizona National Guard to help with flooding in Havasupai. So that is something else we're seeing as well. And, there's some fallout about RFK backing Trump. Billy Baldwin unleashed on RFK Jr. for endorsing Trump and all along those lines. And I also read recently that evangelicals for Harris are actually putting out an ad about the possibility of Trump being a false prophet. So there are definitely some interesting developments in what's going on in the presidential race as well. And if you thought we had escaped the heat, I guess not, because they're saying dangerous heat is returning to central and eastern U.S. this week. So we can expect some more hot temperatures and all along those lines. I'm glad it wasn't too hot when I was doing those outside activities over the weekend and did a couple of inside as well. But definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And J.D. Vance is getting pressed about Trump and the national abortion ban. Warren, that's Senator Elizabeth Warren, is saying women aren't stupid enough to believe Vance's U.S. abortion ban veto promise, and that's something that is out there as well, as she was just ridiculing J.D. Vance's abortion ban remark. So, like I said, the main news in the U.S. appears to be this whole notion of the campaign and all along those lines. So there's some other things we may get to, including the heat, and something that I'm sure Jacoby and others might be interested in that is a more lighthearted news story and all in that space. I do have Steve Rao with me, so I'm going to see if Steve's got some things that he's got on his mind and everything. And I've got Jacoby with me, and I've got Rick Rosner, and I've also got, I think Nick might be with us in the back or something along those lines, or Kim's with us in the back as well. So both of the founders are in the back. But Jacoby, and I know even you, Steve, I don't know about, I think Rick as well, but apparently today is National Dog Day. So definitely, if you want to get out there, you can celebrate your dog and everything, because you want to find a new
I don't have a dog, but I'm out of the dog house. But anyway, I got some cleaning done. But anyway, yeah, real quickly, happy National Dog Day, everybody. I'll close out today my monologue. I was just a few minutes late to open up about the historic acceptance speech of Vice President Kamala Harris to be the next president of the United States, accepting her party's nomination, in an emotional 40-minute address where she talked about her mom, the incredible journey of her family, and the incredible story of America, and how she believes now it's time to write the next chapter, claiming that she would be a president of all the people. An emotional moment for many Asians and Black Americans and Americans to see this woman and her meteoric rise to now only one step away from the highest office in the land. So I will close out with a monologue on some personal insights on that. I think you pretty much wrapped up everything going on in the world, and I think during the show I might leave and come back at the end, but we're gonna it's amazing to see just what's going on politically with the election, and I really believe, and I'm just gonna go on a limb here to predict and then open it up, that I think that our governor Rick Cooper, the real reason, and I said this on State Lawns on Friday, that he didn't seek the vice presidency was because the only way they really can win is to win North Carolina. And I do believe they have a great chance of winning North Carolina with over 12,000 volunteers already 9,500 have done the first shift. Lots of energy with Asians, Black Americans, Democrats, young voters, but then down ballot effect of folks like Mark Robinson and Michelle Morrow and all these people that are so right wing that it could drive a down ballot uptide effect. And so I think that's what Governor Cooper has said. But when you add it all together, I think there's a high likelihood of a Harris victory in North Carolina, given the fact that Trump only won by 1.3% last time against Joe Biden, and when it was really a COVID campaign. So, I think that's it. If they win North Carolina, it's over, and I think that's why she's coming here so much. I'll go ahead and open it up for thoughts on that, and please, Rick.
So right now in the polls, Kamala Harris leads by 3.5%. It's not enough. Those are Hillary numbers. If the election were held today, Trump would probably pull out according to the polls, a narrow victory. She's got to keep increasing her lead to be where Biden was, which is an 8 to 10% lead in the polls by election day. This week, we'll find out whether she got a bump from the DNC convention or whether she got an opposite bump from RFK Jr. Joining Trump's campaign.
I don't know how much. I mean, I've been talking to people about whether or not. Some people are telling me it could really be a big hurt. Some people are telling me it's not. I don't know if its following was as big as everyone's claiming it to be, but let's see. I don't know. I just don't know.
Nate Silver, who used to run 538, who sometimes has good points, said that RFK might help Trump by 1/3%, which is not nothing, but it's nothing great either.
I don't think RFK is going to be the reason RFK is dropping out of the race, or the reason he was only in the race, which is the same reason why No More Labels was in the race and everything else, is because you had people that did not want to vote for either Biden or Trump. So the only reason RFK was polling well at one point was because he was pulling the Never Trumpers and the Never Bidens. But now Kamala Harris is coming to the race. So once she came in, his polling percentage dropped off a cliff because people wanted something new. And they actually got something sane and new in Kamala Harris and not RFK. So I don't think it's going to help Trump as much as it's going to just be a balancing effect, because RFK is really another one of those that's going to he killed a bear and dropped it off in a Central Park. That story is not going away. He ranted and raved about a brain worm. That's not going away. His sexual assault is not going away. All these things really are a negative for him and not a net positive for him. So I don't think it's going to be this giant pull for Trump. Yeah, maybe about a point, if that. But I think it's just going to be Trump is going to get one person and lose one person because of RFK.
And Adobe, along those same lines, one of the things I heard, and I read an interesting article actually earlier today, is this notion of what the evangelicals for Harris are doing, because they're already conceding that probably about 60 to 70% of the evangelicals are very pro-Trump and will back him no matter what, but they're trying to bite off the I think it's 10% that still think of him as a terrible president, and about another 25 to 30 that think of him as poor to average. So they're trying to bite off some of that portion by some of these ads that they are starting to run, painting him as a false prophet and also questioning some of his moral integrity, for lack of a better term. So will any of that work in your mind in terms of peeling off some of the quote unquote more moderate evangelicals?
What I'm seeing a lot on Twitter is Trump voters admitting he's a terrible guy, but saying it pains them, but they still have to vote for Trump because of policy, which is another garbagey argument, but it might be persuasive with people.
No, it's very persuasive. As a matter of fact, they have a point, Rick. I mean, let's go take a look at, and I'll go to Jatovi's great and wonderful comment. He goes, "Oh, we got Kamala Harris. She is sane and new." And if you look at her policies, it involves increasing taxes and increasing spending and more government debt. So you tell me that's sane and new. So Donald Trump is probably the worst person in the world in terms of personality. And all I've heard from this table and this panel for the last 5 minutes was personality. But when it comes to policy, it's not even close. Kamala Harris's policy will lead the United States right down the toilet, and that's one reason Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States.
I've
People
heard,
are
I
going to see
don't know
through
whether it's
personality issues, and they're going to look at the policy issues.
I've heard that Trump wants to give rich guys another $5 trillion tax cut, which doesn't.
That might be true, but look at what Kamala Harris is doing.
But see, Nick, this is what you're doing right
more
now.
Taxes.
What
and
you're
she's
actually
going to
doing right
increase
now.
The size of the government.
Nick,
okay, these are things,
Nick,
policy things that people do not want.
But
Nick, remember, the Democratic Party is
Nick,
not democratic. She was anointed to be the president.
Incorrect.
Nobody elected her.
Nick, just to point out, what
vote.
you're doing exactly right now is exactly what the Republican Party is doing, but nothing you've said is based in reality. What you said is a bunch of talking points, saying, okay, she wants to increase taxes. Well, okay, Donald Trump wants to throw on tariffs on these other countries, which is going to increase taxes more so than what Kamala Harris is going to do. That's what the economists actually say. Kamala Harris has already put out a plan talking about cutting taxes for the middle income families. Go ahead and put up that thing that you said already, that you already posted. What else did you say on there? That she wanted to do what? Go ahead and put it back up there, Nick.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you can see this
all right,
is the
so
Democratic
you said
policy.
increased taxes, which is
Increased
incorrect.
taxes,
That's a talking
increased
point
spending.
that, like I said, Donald Trump actually is going to increase taxes on the middle income families due to the fact of his tariffs. On top of that, Donald Trump, as Rick pointed out, wanted to cut taxes for his rich buddies. That means that's more money that the middle income families are going to have to pay. And that's based on his own tax plan that he pushed in 2017 and 2016. And actually even what he's doing right now. So the increased tax thing is no more than a talking point that the GOP pushes out because it sounds cool. And that's the same talking point that they've instilled in their people, but it's untrue. Increased spending. Donald Trump spent more than any other president. He spent a quarter of the actual national debt. So when we want to talk about increased spending, Donald Trump actually is spending more than any other president has. So again, it's a talking point, not based in reality, but it's something that is said over and over because what I hate to tie it to this because I hate saying it. But it's so true. The more you say the lie, the louder you say the lie, the more people are going to believe it because you said this lie. And that's what Donald Trump goes over. That's all he does. Everything he said is a complete lie.
We can talk about
but the thing is, what you just said had no
talk about
basis
some
in
of the
fact either.
specifics.
You're
Incorrect,
saying that
Nick.
tariffs
Incorrect,
increase
Nick.
government
You've already
debt.
looked it up and I pointed it out, and you actually pointed
No,
it out.
no, what you said
Donald
is
Trump
totally
spent
untrue.
25% of the national debt. Fact.
No,
you
what
cannot
you
debate
said
that.
is totally untrue. You said increasing tariffs increase government debt. It does not.
It
may
does.
put more burden on the lower middle class.
I said that it increased
but it's
taxes.
not a
I didn't
tax
say it
burden.
increased the debt. You just lied on that. I said it increased taxes on individuals. It
No, it
increased
doesn't.
spending on
It
middle
doesn't
income
increase
families,
taxes individual.
which
It may
you
increase
just
more
actually agreed
spending
to.
on
So I don't know
individuals,
why
but
we're
it doesn't
debating on
increase
this right
taxes.
now because
Be
you've agreed with
specific,
me.
Counselor. That is absolutely not true. And see,
It
the
is.
Republicans are really smart. They see right through your Democratic
No,
lies that you're trying
again.
to say that tariffs
Again,
increase
Nick.
taxes.
Hold on
They
a second.
don't.
Nick.
Rick had something he wanted to add.
Yeah, let's talk about the specifics of some of her tax ideas. She wants to increase the corporate tax rate. So it was 35% for corporations under Obama. Trump knocked it down by 40% to 21%. She wants to raise it back up to 28%. Don't know if I love that. She says for people making no tax increases for people making less than $400,000 a year. She wants to raise the tax rate to 39.6 from 37 for income earned above $400,000. And the most I don't know, the newest, the thing that nobody's done before is she wants to tax unrealized capital gains if you're worth more than $100 million. An unrealized capital gain is if you buy a stock at $10 and it goes to $100, you have a lot of money, potential money that you're sitting on that you don't have to pay taxes on until you sell that stock. But that's unrealized capital gains. She wants to say if you're sitting on a bunch of that stuff and you're worth more than 100 million, we should tax that at 25%. I don't know if that's workable.
Yeah, well, as you can see, her overall policy of tax and spend is the traditional Democratic policy.
We didn't
We're
even
going to
get
spend
into
more
it.
for the government
Nick,
and increase taxes.
We have
And
pointed
you know
out
those
already
increased
what you
rates that
prepared,
Jeremy
and
keeps
this is
talking
what the
about,
GOP
they
does.
affect everybody. They affect corporations and individuals more so than tariffs do.
Donald
So the thing
Trump-
is, the
no,
Republicans
incorrect.
see through this more government, more debt, more spending, increased taxes.
Well, Rick,
Kamala
I'm gonna
Harris.
quit. I'm gonna quit.
Kamala. And by the way, she was not
Right.
democratically
But
elected.
anyway, real quick,
He was
real quickly,
appointed.
Hold on, Nick. You got something.
She was appointed.
just to come back real quickly, I want to talk about the economy for a minute. And I'm going to have to step out and come back in the final 2 minutes to close out. But the bottom line is that when you look at the economy, this administration has created 15 million new jobs. There have been $230 billion clean energy projects in all 50 states. North Carolina has received $50 billion from VinFast to Forge Battery to all of the expansions, even through the CHIPS Act. We're bringing back manufacturing jobs through Wolfspeed's expansion and so many of these electric car component battery manufacturers. And that's only green and sustainability. So the bottom line is that I think there is a case that this administration has created more jobs than Trump administration. This administration has, through bipartisanship, created more infrastructure opportunities in terms of roads and bridges. And President Trump, the Republicans had an opportunity to sign bipartisan immigration reform legislation, and they didn't do it because it wasn't politically expedient to Trump. So yeah, the debt problem, I agree with you, Nick Paudiva, but it's not just the Republicans. Democrats and Republicans have been adding to the debt. But for the record, I just don't understand how people that support President Trump say he's good for the economy. Inflation is lower than it was when he took over the White House. We don't have 500,000 people dead from COVID. We've got a united Europe investing in Ukraine. So, and I think Vice President Harris did a good job in her addressing it. Now, Nick Paudiva does have a good point. You got to show how you're going to pay for it. And that's the one detail that she is going to have to show. Otherwise, it's just all these promises that she's making. Well, I'm going to create 300 million for affordable housing, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. Well, what's the cost? So it will add to the debt. But I just want to.
I know where you can get the money. All you have to do is let Donald Trump's tax cut law that he put into place in 2017. It expires in 2025. It was giving the wealthy top 6% a 60% tax cut. That hurt us by $1.9 trillion. And so what we need to do is just let that law expire, and you'll have plenty of money to work with. That's the reason why you see all these wealthy panicking, and they're all going to their social media trying to convince you that everything that Trump is going to do is in your benefit and not theirs. You can go watch Grant Cardone. I think he's going to have a heart attack. God love him. I think he's funny because he's panicked. He is like freaking out. Oh my God. If you let Kamala in and you don't vote Trump in, then you're going to lose everything. Look at these numbers. And I did his numbers, and you will lose. The middle class will lose. They are going to lose 60% tax cut. If you look at a $400,000 income, which is where it starts, they get back $60,000 a year. That's a lot of money that they took out of our tax funds. So that's where you're going to get the money, Steve. That's where you'll get the money.
The tax trumps the part of only the tax breaks for middle class people expire in Trump's tax law in 2025. The tax cuts for the super rich don't expire. I've got a question for Nick, which is, how do you get corporations to contribute more without them just going overseas? Because that's what big corporations do. If you raise their corporate tax rate, they just move their base of operations to overseas to some other country that charges less. Is there any way to?
Yeah, it's called tariffs, which Jacoby totally objects to because he doesn't want to bring government. He doesn't want to bring jobs back to the United States. He wants to keep the jobs overseas. So he's totally against tariffs, and tariffs do work. What happens is the tax burden then does not fall on the U.S. government. Actually, is a net revenue to the U.S. government, and it brings jobs back to the United States, which is a Republican position.
Well, then
the
I have a
Democratic
follow-up
position is
question.
no tariffs. Instead, spend more.
Hold on a second.
Put
We
us
got a
in
follow-up
more
question.
debt,
Nick, if the
and
debt fell
increase
back
the size of the government. And no one wants it except the Democrats. More government spending, more debt. That's called Kamala Harris.
But how do you do tariffs so that they just don't become a charge to consumers? You put a $5,000.
So what? Okay, so consumers have to pay more. So what? You know, the thing is, we consume too much anyway. So now we'll force people to actually think before they just spend wildly on their stupid goods. There's no problem with that.
So wait a second.
And it makes our government strong again. As Trump says, let's make America great again. Let's not make it poor. Let's not make it broke and woke like the Democratic Party.
So a couple of things real quick. Steve, you bring up a great point about, how to pay for it. But the problem that we run into is that we ask Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party to figure out a way, how do you pay for it? But we never, ever have asked, how does Trump pay for it? How does Trump give what details does Trump have on any of his plans? The only thing he says is, hey, for example, I can make a phone call and end the wars. Oh, I can bring down inflation. Oh, but how? We ask no details. We just ride with it and then say, okay, now Kamala Harris, you're saying that you're going to work on this. Now, can you give me a full-blown detailed breakdown of everything that you're going to do so you can actually make us palatable to what you're actually doing? But yet, okay, we're just going to ride with I will as Trump's plan. So to get back to the whole tariffs situation, Trump is saying he wants to do a blanket tariff. That is what I'm against. A full-blown blanket tariff doesn't work. What you got to do, and it's true, tariffs are used to bring back those things and to attack the things. I'm not against tariffs, only in a blanket tariff where you're, hey, I'm just going to throw it out there for every country under the sun, because that's what people are talking about, and that's what Trump is talking about in whatever plan he has, because he's put out no details. I'm going to give tips, but he's put out no details. But we're begging Kamala Harris for every single little bitty detail when it's Trump who was in there for 4 years and spent 25% of the actual the debt. So again, when we say these talking points with nothing on there, that's the problem that we run into. Is that our electorate right now, yes, just wants bumper stickers, and the Republican Party is great at bumper stickers. But for some odd, we out of the luck of the draw, the Democrat Party right now has found someone who can drop a bumper sticker, and that's what people are picking up on, and that's what's driving a lot of that in a lot of the easy because we ask the Democrats to get nuanced. We don't ask the Republican Party to get nuanced and detailed. Tell me what, Nick. What is Trump's economic plan to bring down the debt? What's his?
Well, as you noticed, Jacoby, if you look,
Nick, you're avoiding the question. I didn't need a.
His plan to bring down the debt is tariffs. Tariffs become the taxes. And what his plan to do is lessen the government. Look at Project 2025.
That's not a plan.
He'll adopt a lot of that. And what that is just bring government. I was reading it the other day, and it has some great things there. It's getting rid of your administrative state, which is so huge. The bureaucracy is so blown that I'm fighting the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation as we sit today, who's running around because they were funded with $85 billion to go destroy small business retirement plans. That is your democratic process. What they do, they overfund the government and then they come after small businesses. That's the democratic plan. So we know it's a bad plan. We know Trump, when he was in office, his economy was singing. Look at the unemployment today, 4.3%. We didn't see that during the Trump administration. Let's look at the bankruptcies today, 6,276.
Yeah, most of them are big box stores because big box stores are going out of business.
Let's look at home sales, lowest since the pandemic. 6.8%.
Home sales are low.
We didn't see that during the Trump administration. Let's look at the record number of people working multiple jobs. We
had working poor up under Donald Trump, but he didn't do anything.
Let's look at the debt to GDP ratio, highest
GDP
ever.
is higher up under Biden than it was up under Donald Trump.
Let's look at the homelessness in California. We didn't see that during the Trump administration. So the whole idea that, of course, the dollar losing 25% in the last 4 years that I
every nation has lost.
Okay, and here's the problem, Jacoby. The Democrats have nothing to brag about during the Biden administration. As a matter of fact, everything got worse, and that's the reason Trump's going to win.
Yeah, but somebody who insists on not being interrupted, you certainly interrupt a lot.
Kamala's a nice person. That's great. But Kamala and what's his name, Biden, are incompetent.
Are we here for Shaquille Latimer?
Yeah, we'll listen to Shaquille.
A couple of points. So, firstly, as far as I'm aware, Trump hasn't said he wants a blanket tariff. He's talked about having specific tariffs on specific countries that he feels are doing the wrong things in relation to trade with the United States. If he was to have a blanket tariff, that doesn't make sense because that would hurt US exports. I'll just say, Rick talks about Trump and the Republicans wanting to give a tax cut to the rich, and Kimberly, I think, has echoed that. How do you give a tax cut to the poor? If you have a system which is as progressive as you've got, it's the most progressive system in the world, in the Western world anyway, how do you give a tax cut to people that don't pay taxes? You've got a situation where the top 10% of your country pays half the taxes, where the top 50% pays all of the taxes. What do you want them to do? Now, you're talking about increasing the corporate tax rate, increasing personal rates of tax. All that's going to do is it's going to make foreign investors shy to move to the United States to bring businesses there. It's going to discourage them from doing it. It's going to discourage new enterprises from starting up. That's something that you can't easily measure. Why does that make sense to anybody? Taxing unrealized capital gains at 25% is absolutely absurd. The other thing that I'll just point out is that when people talk about the top 1%, in the United States, I think now to be the top 1%, you've got to have an income of around 800,000 to 900,000. A lot of people will actually hit that category once in their life because they've bought a property in the 50s that's now worth 2 or 3 million. It's their own home. They sell it, and that sale is exempt from tax. Are those the people that you want to go after?
Well, you're wrong there,
Jack, I'm not wrong. Kimberly, I'm not wrong. Kimberly, I'm not wrong. I actually do this for a living, so I'm not wrong.
You are wrong. Do you do taxes here? Do you do your taxes here? You're very wrong.
All right,
go read the articles on it.
Kimberly, I know a lot about your tax. All right, you go for it, Kimberly. You know everything. You go for it.
I do.
Okay. All right. I don't pay any US taxes. Is that your claim? I don't pay any US taxes. I don't pay any US taxes, and I have no ability. I have no ability to compare the US tax system to the tax system in Canada and Australia and the United Kingdom and Europe. I've got no ability to do that because I don't know anything about that.
Like a normal
Those are the
American
statistics
citizen.
that have come out from your government. It's been an ongoing problem. If you don't believe me, go to David K. Johnson and ask him. He said this himself on previous shows where him and I have discussed this issue. What you need to have is a broader based tax system like everybody else has got. Okay?
What
Now,
I'm
if you don't want
saying
that,
is
if you don't want to do
no
that, if you
idea
don't
what
look,
you're talking
Kimberly,
about when it comes
Kimberly,
to filing
Kimberly,
taxes
if you don't,
in the United
Kimberly,
States, you don't.
Kimberly, Kimberly,
Come over here and file
what
a
is
form with me.
I can't.
File a
Obviously, I
form
can't
with
speak.
me.
I'll let you go.
So I have a.
Come
You
and
asked
file
Shaq.
a form with me.
Shaq, you asked a
I'll go
question.
one-on-one with
No,
you.
I hadn't.
Come
I
file
actually
a
hadn't
form.
finished.
Answer to the-
I hadn't even come close to finishing what I was trying to say. But if you guys don't want me to speak, that's fine. Again, if you are going to silence everybody who has an opinion that is not a progressive or Democrat position, just say that from the outset so that we don't bother showing up.
Hey, Shaq, that's the liberal policy of the United States of America.
Exactly.
If we have a
Trump
different
proposed
policy
a blanket
or
tax
position than
tariff
they
on
do,
most
Right.
of the
they're the ones that
Republican
scream
Rick.
loud.
But this is
and
not.
Republican
This
try
is
to
not about.
destroy us.
This is not about a Republican
You know?
Democrat issue. If you're
No.
talking about
Yeah, it's
taxes,
about
that is a
tax.
non-partisan issue. Okay, we can compare what tax systems tend to work and which ones don't. New Zealand sits to the left of Australia, but New Zealand has theoretically a lower tax system, but they raise more as a percentage of their GDP than what Australia does, because Australia has a more progressive tax system than what New Zealand does. Now, do I sit there and bemoan New Zealand's tax system? No, I say their tax system is actually pretty well thought out. So what you're doing is you're saying, well, how dare you actually say something about the American tax system, despite the fact that Nobel Prize-winning economists for decades have decried the inefficiency of the US tax system. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to say that because I've said it, I must be wrong because I'm some sort of weird Trump supporter, which I'm not. I can't vote in your elections. It's silly to have that opinion.
Shaquille, I did have a quick
You asked a question. I've
Hold on
got
a
an
second,
answer.
Rick, because I did have a quick question based on something that I had brought up earlier that is actually
Read
Australian.
the article I
Hold on a
posted
second.
in the
Hold on a
chat,
second.
Shaq.
Hold
You
on.
read a lot.
I had a
Read
question
it.
for.
Read the
Hold on, 'cause
article.
I had a question for
Read it.
Shaq based on the other part of the news that I said, and I will get to
Pick a
another part of
paper,
the
read it.
economy as well and everything. But Shaquille, one of the things that I brought up in the news and everything was a new news story that came out that might even work in America. But apparently, y'all recently passed a law that says that you don't have to accept a call or an email from your boss after hours and everything. So I just wondered if you heard about this and your thoughts around this and everything, because apparently this is a new law, because it was one of the news stories that came out that Australia has said, you know, if your boss is sending you an email after hours, you are legally entitled not to answer him. You don't have to like feel that you're going to be threatened for losing your job or anything like that. So you can legally not answer him during the after hours or the weekends, because apparently a lot of people were bugging y'all doing after hours in Australia. So have you heard about this law and what's going on?
Yeah, it's called the Right to Disconnect Law, passed by the Labor Party. It was asked for by absolutely nobody, and it was supported by absolutely nobody, and it's patently absurd. It's a ridiculous law. It's just a complete waste of the Parliament's time to sit there and pass this law that nobody actually asked for. And then what you'll get is you'll get somebody who is prepared to take calls after hours, who gets promoted, and then goes, "Oh, I was discriminated against." No, you weren't discriminated against. You know, if the boss calls you because, hey, someone's called in sick, or hey, like, you know, can you help with something? You know, when I've employed people, I give people time off, or I give people a pay rise, or I take them out for dinner or something like that to make up for the extra time that of theirs that I take. So, you know, I'll often take my staff out for drinks on a Friday night. Not every Friday, but every few weeks, once a month or something like that, I'll take them out for drinks and dinner. So then, if I call one of them on the way home to say, "Oh, hey, you left your wallet here or something," oh no, you know, they shouldn't take my call. It's just patently absurd. And again, it was something that nobody asked for. Even the unions didn't ask for it.
It's a stupid law. I just listened to it.
Yeah,
that's got to be the dumbest thing I've ever
All right,
heard.
so hold on. So let me I've waited a second. Now,
I'm going to go ahead and begin my closeout and then start tomorrow because I have to leave. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm just going to go ahead and close out today. And I just want to make a statement about Vice President Harris. I think it was an amazing moment in the history of our nation that we see today. You know, as an Indian American, a public servant, I never thought in my lifetime I'd see a person of color whose mother came from India to serve in the President of the United States, and to win the nomination was a monumental step forward. I think it, you know, if anything, it just shows that the tapestry of our country is changing and that diversity is important. But more important now, I think the debate has to become about the ideas that she has, her qualifications to do the job, and what she would do to pave the way for the future of Americans. I want to challenge her on that she would work for all the American people on whether that would really work in the midst of a very partisan campaign. But I hope that either one of these candidates for president would realize that the office they hold represents every American, and I think the world is watching very closely. But make no mistake, this is a barrier that's been broken. It's paved the way for a future generation of diverse leaders in our nation. And I know in the United States, there's a lot of young boys and girls watching with a lot of energy, and the idea that no dream is too big, no barrier insurmountable, and if you're equipped with the right determination, integrity, commitment to service, experience, and hard work. So I congratulate her. I congratulate her and the Emhoff family, and wish them all the best in their journey. And that's what I found good about her talk. She taught about the journey of her mother, the journey of Americans. And now I think the time is to focus in on the details of the campaign. So I hope there is a debate, but we wish them well. And just wanted to throw that out there as I wanted to share some personal insights about her candidacy. So thank you all so much.
So Shaq asked a question 10 minutes ago. How do you reduce taxes for people who already make not enough to pay federal income tax? And the euphemistic term for this is a refundable tax credit, which we've done before. And if this plan is implemented, people will get back more money from the federal government at certain income levels than they paid in taxes. The government will give them money.
Rick, that's already the situation.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's how they do it.
But Rick, here's the thing, right? The United States does not exist.
Freeloaders to just get more money. I totally object to that.
The United States
if you're living in this country,
in
you need to pay taxes, and this is an abomination. 50% of Americans pay no tax. You know why it is? It's training our young people and training our Americans to be freeloaders. Everybody has to be a freeloader. And 50% of Americans that pay no federal income taxes are basically
let me just
on the American.
Let me just come in on something here. So Rick, the United States does not exist in a vacuum, okay? And neither does the moment that we're in right now, to use Kamala Harris's terms. Neither does that exist in a vacuum. So we can compare these types of policies where they've been tried before. They were tried before in the Nordic and Scandinavian countries. They didn't work. That's why they had to actually release the reins. Now, you guys will often consider places like Sweden to be, the epitome of the kind of economy that you'd want to run. Now, there's lots of positive things about Sweden. I can tell you about many of them. But I can also tell you that there are things that makes it a little bit more difficult in Sweden. But that's what you guys are wanting to do. But you're not wanting to tax yourselves like Sweden does. You don't want to implement the same sorts of policies that Sweden has. What you want to do is you want to have the best of both worlds. And what the Democrats tend to do, what the left and progressives tend to do, is they tend to keep coming after the rich. At what point is it enough? So when people say, when Biden was saying, pay your fair share, we just want them to pay their fair share. Okay, that sounds reasonable. But tell us what the fair share is. What are we measuring this on? If we're going to measure it on what percentage of the GDP do they earn, and are they paying proportionally what they should be as a percentage of their GDP? That's a fair comparison. That comparison is very rarely done. When it is, you'll find that they pay disproportionately more. On every metric, the wealthy in your country pay more. So then they start talking about things like the alternative minimum tax, because they say that the very wealthy are avoiding their taxes and reducing taxes by using loopholes. Loopholes like what? Let's use your state, for example. The return on Californian state bonds at the moment run about 3%. I'm rounding this up, okay? They run about 3%. The federal bonds run about 5%. So why are the state bonds less risky? They're not. What would a foreign investor ever invest in a state bond? No. The reason is because those state bonds are tax-free, okay? The same thing with real estate investment trusts in the United States. As long as they meet certain criteria, they're not taxed at a company level. It's just a pass-through entity. What you do when you start to create these alternative minimum taxes is you are actually punishing people for using a system that was put in space specifically for them to use. If people go and use opportunity zones, that was designed specifically to attract their money. Then you go after them and punish them and say, well, you guys are terrible, horrible people. And I can tell you that, I know a lot of very wealthy people, far wealthier than I'll ever be, okay? Or maybe one day, hopefully, but I doubt I'll ever be as wealthy as some of the people that I know. And I can tell you that almost all of them talk about taxes. They're not trying to just reduce their taxes to nothing, but they are so sick and tired of being constantly gone after by overzealous governments that they leave. If it's possible for them to leave, if it's possible for them to structure themselves somewhere else, they do exactly that. And just the last thing I'll say, if you want any proof of that, let's talk about the most progressive liberal group that I can think of, which is Hollywood celebrities and the filmmaking business. You think they make all their films in Hollywood anymore, guys? No. What do? They go to Louisiana, they go to Georgia, they go to Canada, they go to all these other places where they get, guess what? Tax credits. And these are the very same people that say that you should be paying more tax.
I agree with Shad.
Hold on a second. Just 1 second. I had a question for Jacoby based on y'all's whole conversation and everything. And Shaquille, I hear what you're saying because we used to have tax credits here in North Carolina. Like I said earlier at the beginning, I had the pleasure of going to a toast that he was given with Mayor Leonardo Williams, who is our Durham mayor and everything. One of the things that we're seeing on social media is he's getting a lot of pushback, and it's kind of the pushback that you talk about, Shaquille, but I want to know, Jacoby, and maybe even your thoughts, because one of the pushbacks that he is getting from some people on social media is that he's kind of sold him out to the developers, and that the developers are doing a lot of development in our downtown area and even some of our suburban areas, and some of the people that are in the poor areas are feeling that he has sold down the river to the developers. I'm not saying I agree with them, but I'm just saying I was wondering people's answers to that, because that's been going on our social media now for about ever since he spoke. Because once you speak, then everybody wants to bring out their criticism of you and everything. So there has been this notion, and it's not just here. I've seen it in other cities as well, in other countries, that the developers are getting some serious breaks, and therefore the lower people, or the people that are lower economic class, are not getting the services that they need. So
well, what do you want? You want to have an increase in your housing stock, or you don't? If you want to have an increase in your housing stock, the way that you achieve that is by incentivizing developers to come in. Just like in an international marketplace, if the United States want to maintain a competitive advantage, which they're very quickly losing, by the way, if you want to maintain it, you have to compete on an international level. When you guys have corporate taxes at almost 40%, while the average in Europe is 20%, where do you think a person's going to go? If you're sitting there in Asia and you're like, look, I need to set up a company somewhere, what are you going to do? Set it up in the UK at 21% corporate tax? Or are you going to set up in the United States at 40%? Right? I can tell you, when I set up my hedge fund, okay, I had a fund that applied, it was an alternative investment fund, and it came under the European Union rules, which allowed me to take money from almost every country except for the United States. Now, in order to face the United States, I had to have another entity. And guess what? There was a couple of different places that I could put it. One of them is known for being a tax haven. It's not, in my opinion, but one of them is something that people would consider to be a tax haven. And the other place would be to set up in the United States. There was no way in hell I was going to set up in the US. There was just no way I was going to, right? And even if I wanted to, I would have to go back through and reset the equivalent US test for the ones that I've already, to get the qualifications I've already got. Okay, I wouldn't have to study for them.
But I was actually asking that to
so that's a barrier. That's a barrier to entry to the US. Okay, now, I'm in finance, but I can tell you so many other people that say the same thing to me in other industries. It's not worth them doing. And if they really want to have access to the United States, what you do is you go and set up a business in Canada, and you just rely on the free trade agreement. That's what you do. You would never, or Mexico, you would never ever go and set up in the US. That should be alarming and concerning to Americans.
Well, like I said, tell me, I don't know if you have any thoughts, because we are the most blue city that you can have in the U.S. and everything. And definitely he is seen as a enterprise type mayor and everything, but he is getting some pushback from some of the grassroots folks and everything. I won't have to. Anybody can be an enterprise mayor if what you're going to do is use taxpayers' dollars to subsidize something and to give people money. Like here,
set your business up here and I'll give you $1 million. Okay.
Yeah,
I
they do
I
that.
agree with Shaq that you can't finance the federal budget on the backs of the super rich. There just aren't enough super rich. I wanted to bring up a point that's not economic. Trump plus RFK Jr. have a new slogan, MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. They say that if you elect them, that they will figure out how to make America like less unhealthy, which is crazy because RFK Jr. is full of supplemental testosterone, and Trump is not exactly a paragon of fitness.
Well, they
Rick,
said-
but let me just come back on you. Let me just come back on you on that for a little bit, though. Okay, let's just talk about that for a minute.
Funny.
Because when I came to the United States, I'm not known to be a fussy eater. I'm always at fancy restaurants. I'll try all sorts of things. I struggle to eat the food in the United States because I'm not used to it. Okay, well, one of the things is that there's a lot of sugar in the food, and it just tastes a lot different. It's just prepared differently. American food products are actually banned in several countries around the world, Western countries, because of the processing that goes on, because of the chemicals that are used, and because of the lack of clarity about what chemicals are actually being used in American food. That's a problem, and it's been talked about not actually by the right, not until recently. This was always talked about by the left. The left was always out there saying, especially in California, saying, why are we allowing our food sources to be as diluted as this? Okay, that's the wrong word, but why are we allowing that to happen? Why are we allowing these big, massive corporations to come in and destroy the food system? Now, parents around America wanted their children to have fresh fruit, and then the food manufacturer said, well, can you please divine fruit for me? And now the kids get these like candy things with like a certain percentage of juice in them, and that's considered to be fruit. That's a problem. And I don't think that it is some sort of far right or far left mega conspiracy theory to call it out. So when you are saying, visible health outcomes, especially compared to your peer group, I think that's worth some consideration.
It definitely
it may
is.
also be worth some regulations to come in there and to fix that problem.
So
It definitely is. There was a recent study done.
Hold on a second.
The number one healthiest country in the world is Spain, which I'm
Yeah.
moving to, by the way.
Okay.
The United States doesn't even crack the top
No,
50.
The U.S. is
That's how
horrible.
unhealthy this country is. Thank you, the Democratic Party,
No,
for
incorrect.
supporting
So, can I-
the most
can I-
unhealthy country.
Let me jump in real
America.
quick, Nick. Let me jump in real quick. Just
You
to point
can't
out,
do any
that
worse.
Shaq just pointed out that it was the left's push in terms of doing the healthy eating and a lot of the healthy stuff. But it was the right's push to cut these regulations because he said we're killing regulations and we're affecting our kids. If you look at what happened in the school lunches, this is what the Obamas pushed heavily in terms of changing these school lunches. And the school lunches did change. There was fresh fruit. As a matter of fact, you can go to the schools in Durham. And now what these school lunches and what was found out in terms of these kids is that hunger is one of the biggest inhibitors for learning. So this is why there have been those big pushes in terms of free lunches and everything else, because there are a lot of poor, those individuals where you said that don't pay any taxes, they're really, really poor individuals where those kids are only able to eat breakfast and lunch at school. They don't have that at home. So a lot of these kids end up relying on those school lunches. And that's something that's a field that I'm in the midst of. What you were talking about earlier, Mark, the question that you asked, the big problem that people are having, again, this boils down to the idea of gentrification. This is where that is coming from. And it is true, gentrification is a real thing. And what goes on, yes, you've got to incentivize the developers, which Shaq is correct on. But the problem is a lot of the times these developers come in and kick out the individuals that live there and make the homes unaffordable. So therefore, these individuals that used to live there get upset because, hey, I have nowhere to live because I can't live where I lived before. This is what goes on in terms of gentrification. And this is that battle.
I don't make the homes unaffordable. That's market
Shaq,
supply
I'll
and
let you
demand.
talk. Please let me talk for just a little bit.
You interrupted Nick the whole
I
way
did
through.
not interrupt you, please. We're not going to end the show this way.
You interrupted Nick the whole way
We're in the
through.
show
when he
about
was
what
speaking.
minute?
I said one little thing.
Let me finish, please. Shaq, let me finish. So again, this is that battle that you're talking about. And this is where we have to come up with some type of balancing act. because there has to be affordable housing that is truly affordable. And a lot of times what ends up going up is affordable housing that is unaffordable to those individuals. So this is where the people in Durham are upset at the developers coming in and think that Leo sold out. But I don't think Leo did. I think Leo's trying to find that balancing act, which a lot of mayors and a lot of individuals have to come to, because it is a tough thing and it's more complex than we're trying to make it simple here. But it's a little tough.
Now we're at the hour. We got to go.